Trustee Walt Wachewski.
Here.
Trustee Neil Gaynor.
Here.
Trustee Brad Hauk.
Brett in his place too.
Good evening, Emily. Nice to see you.
Thank
Trustee Kent Maggart.
Here.
Trustee Keith Lincoln. Trustee David Smith.
Here.
Trustee Hugh Connett.
Here.
Trustee Bob Lux is here. Trustee Paul Martin.
Here.
We have a quorum. We have a full slate of trustees. We'll begin with an invocation and pledges of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those who we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with wisdom, understanding, and humility. Amen. If you wish, prior to reciting the pledges of allegiance, please take an additional moment of silent prayer or reflection in the manner of your preference. Amen. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one day, under God, one and indivisible. Very good. Okay. Do we have any comments from the public this evening? None, Shelley? Thank you. Brings us to agenda item number 4, to receive the update on the Region H. Mr. Bredehoff, please. Good evening.
Trustees, good evening, senior staff and members of the public. Just a brief update tonight. We can confirm that the Region H plan for 2026 through 2031 has been released to the Texas Board of Development Board on March 3rd, as that's our timetable. So that's out. So what will take place is both Region H will review the interim plan, make any adjustments. By March, we have to have the final plan approved by the full board, Region H, and submitted to the Texas Board of Development Board by March of this year, and then that will get uploaded into the full state plan. April is going to be month of public comments, so we'll get back with any schedules on public comments of the plan so that the public will have the opportunity to submit comments on the plan. And our next quarterly meeting is scheduled for May 7th. So that's our brief report for tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your input and time. Agenda item number 5, receive an update from Region 6, San Jacinto Regional Flood Planning Group. Imelda Diaz, good evening. Nice to see you.
Everyone, good to see you too. It's been a couple of months I've been here, so apologize for that. So the Friesen Nichols, the technical consultant, they have been facing some contract delays, but now they're finally on board through Harris County, and they're finalizing their subcontractor agreements. But they have gone ahead and sent some email blast to discuss amendment number 2 for the 2023 flood plan. And their next task is going to be to update the key stakeholder database for this month, and it will reflect changes on the newly elected officials. So I think we discussed this last time. A lot of y'all were not on that list for the e-blast. So again, if anyone wants to be added to the database, you can go online and submit your request to be added to the email notifications. Amendment number 2 to the 2023 Regional Flood Plan was posted for public review on March 6th and includes the new flood mitigation projects from the Harris County Flood Control District, Chambers County, Grimes County, and Taylor Lake Village. The amendment is going to be discussed tomorrow during our bi-monthly meeting. And there will be possible action to move forward with adoption of the plan into the 2020, of the amendment, I'm sorry, into the 2023 flood plan. As a reminder, the final submission to TWDB is April 1st, 2025. In the meantime, the 2028 planning cycle is now underway, and it's focusing on expanding flood risk modeling to now include the 10% annual chance event. It's also improving infrastructure assessments, specifically dams, levees, and low water crossings. And it's also refining the flood mitigation evaluation selection process to prioritize higher impact projects that would be more likely to receive funding. A new stakeholder survey is going to be launched soon to collect input on the flood prone areas and ongoing projects. It's going to include a web map integration and Spanish language options. The draft 2020 plan is due on May 2027, and the final 2028 plan is due on January 2028. The first technical committee meeting is scheduled for April, and it's going to be focused on assessing regional flood infrastructure, updating flood risk modeling, and selecting priority FMEs for funding. I'm going to be on that committee. And then finally, the flood infrastructure funding cycle is expected in 2026. So communities should start preparing project proposals now to position themselves for funding eligibility. So that's all I have.
That's plenty.
I know, quite a bit of an update.
On the notes in our packet, it talks about Reese Nichols' appointment of voting member representative Houston Friendswood. How does that structure work?
Oh, yes. So they had 2 openings. One is to represent the larger municipalities, and that was Paresh Ladd was selected to represent that. And then they had another another position that was created to represent smaller municipalities. And the threshold on that, if I remember correctly, was 50,000 or less. That would be a small municipality. And I've got to confirm that. I believe it was 50,000. So they would be voting members as well.
Is this unusual to have a consultant fill those spots instead of a citizen or a local resident?
They're both, they both work for the cities, for the municipality.
Okay, they work for the.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Paresh works for the city of Houston, and the other gentleman, I don't have his name top of my head, but he works for the city of Friendswood. Any other questions?
What else? Thank you, Imelda. Have a pleasant evening.
You too.
Okay, we're now to the consent agenda, pages 1 through 14 in our meeting packets.
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
Before we prove it. On page 14, I'm just curious about what this $218,000 payment to Texas Pride Utilities is whether that's a one-time payment or is that a consolidation of several projects?
Yeah, that was the final out of phase 1 of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project.
Oh, so these are the people that are doing the rehabs.
Those districts that were involved in phase 1.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah. Your district was not in that.
No, I know, but
Yep.
that's, so it's,
Yeah, that was that final out of the project.
are they going to be doing, you bid that out or do they?
Yeah, that was bid out and then the phase 2 has been bid out also and
Okay.
the MUDs have approved that. It happens to be the same contractor that was won the second bid as well.
Okay.
On phase 2.
That's all I have.
Correction on page 1. Keith Lincoln should be listed as absent. Otherwise,
Move to accept the rest as presented.
We have a motion to accept the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by trustee Connett. Further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We have one abstention and we have two abstentions. Excuse me. You have those, Shelley? You know who they are? Okay, good. Thank you. All right, that brings us, sorry, I forgot to mention, we've modified the order of the agenda. We're going to move agenda item 12 to follow agenda item 9. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 8, regular monthly SJRA Woodlands Division report. Mr. Meeks, good evening.
Good evening. Just a few things to update y'all on. First is, in the back is, I'm gonna mispronounce it because I'm thinking about it. Malia Good, right? Okay. She is the administrative manager for the UE. So she's basically my right hand when it comes to the administration side of Woodlands and GRP divisions. So she'll be attending MUD meetings, and in some cases, she'll be my backup at the MUD meetings going forward. So
Welcome.
bring her around so y'all can introduce her. So next item is, there's nothing really out of ordinary in the report. Surface water blend still trucking along, no major outages. Everything is still in compliance with no violations. Two other things to note quickly is, prior to the meeting, the sheet right here, if you don't have one, I can pass it to you. But this is the calculation for the excess funds. At the very, very bottom on the right-hand side, you'll see a number of 103%. That shows that we are above the 90%. So the vote that y'all took last month on the excess funds to return them to you is still valid. It goes to our board in a couple of weeks, and a refund should occur in April. Any questions on any of that so far?
Is that gonna talk
If you'd like him to, I could ask him nicely.
nicely?
Just one other thing real quick before we get to Ed. Next week is a major conference that's in Houston. It's the Texas Water Conference. And so me and two of my staff who normally attend these meetings will be in attendance. So we will not have any attendance at the MUD meetings next week. So if you have any questions, just please email Eric and then we'll get them answered as soon as we can. Any questions for me before you give Ed all the hard questions? All right, thank you.
These all the same.
We don't want to say.
Are these all the same?
All the same.
Oh, okay.
No, but just nice,
Ed,
nice.
how did you guys reorganize?
Yes.
I was wondering if you could, I'm handing out the chart. I thought you'd take an opportunity to tell us about it.
We had a division manager resign in our Highlands division last December. Richard Cram, he never came to any of the Woodland MUD meetings. His focus was our Highlands division and the raw water that we deliver to our customers over there. So during the time period from December to about a month ago, I was serving as also director of operations, but also Highlands division manager and running out there a couple of times a week. Spent some time with Aubrey talking about how we wanted to go forward with the organization of Highlands and also the Lake Conroe division. They're both raw water. We saw something that we could economize a little bit and create something very similar to the utility enterprise by creating a raw water enterprise and consolidate upper management. So we created a raw water enterprise manager. That is Brett Rayleigh. He is our former Lake Conroe division manager. And then we created two positions below him, Lake Conroe manager, which is below a division manager, and a Highlands manager. And the Highlands manager is Lindsay Jett. She'd been with us 10 years out in the Highlands. She had been basically Richard Tram's right-hand man, right-hand person for a number of years. And then David Sidney at Lake Conroe moved up to the Lake Conroe manager position. You all have seen David. He provides you the maintenance reports for the 5 MUDs that pay for the Bear Branch maintenance. There were some other minor little things that occurred with the reorganization. We've got an environmental and water quality department that's was under Lake Conroe, and that was moved under the raw water enterprise because they're going to be working between both divisions in both locations. So we're saving about $70,000 a year by making that organizational change.
How about, I'm going back to General Manager Houston. There was a functional structure, not a functional way, a structure which I think you had all of GRP and Lake.
I have 5 divisions under me.
And how about like engineering and accounting? Is that still a shared service, or is that?
Engineering, accounting is still a shared service, so is risk management, so is personnel, so is, and there are a couple others.
What box would that be in there?
None of those are shown there.
Not a show, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
When you look at the overall organizational structure, we have 6 senior managers. Myself is one, Connie Curtis is another. She has GIS, SCADA, and engineering and GIS. Pam Steiger, who you all have seen at various times, she is our chief financial officer and has accounting, HR, risk, and purchasing under her. We have a new in-house general counsel. There is nobody reporting to her, but, well, I guess we all report to her because she keeps us legal. And then there's Cynthia Bowman, who is our chief of staff and is in charge of administration.
Yeah, does the Woodlands division, our division, get some support from anyone in the RWE area, like environmental water quality? Is there some shared services there?
We do water quality testing to make certain that the water in Lake Conroe we're doing everything we can around Lake Conroe to keep that water quality as pure as possible or as clean as possible. And so in a roundabout sort of way, we're part of a Clean Rivers program. And there's one other that we're participating with HGAC, Houston Galveston Area Council, on a water quality master plan around the lake. And so that's kind of an ancillary to the GRP, but directly, no.
Indirect. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Other question?
There was an article in last Sunday's Houston Chronicle. Conroe looks to settle lawsuit against River Authority. Is that for any confirmation that you can?
We can confirm that Conroe City Council did authorize their city administrator to negotiate with St. Center River Authority towards settlement.
What's the status of the
Good
all
stuff.
mud meetings that you brought up last week? or
I
last
believe
month?
they're all scheduled.
I'll report on that when it gets to my report.
Are we gonna have a written report before that meeting on the concrete assessment?
You will get that when we do those meetings.
Can we get a copy of it before the meeting?
I don't know that. I need to check the schedule because we haven't seen it.
I'd like a copy before the meeting. Because you're gonna have them a half hour before the meeting and an hour before the meeting.
I don't know that. I will have to check.
Okay.
Further questions from Mr. Shackelford? Thank you, sir. Okay, we're now going to, the attorney's report. Brian Yates, good evening.
Good evening. Mainly focused on legislative update this evening. So, the legislature's running full tilt. Right now, there have been over 6,000 bills introduced. Frame of reference, over about 8,000 bills introduced in the last session. The filing deadline for general bills is this Friday. Not a filing deadline technically for local bills, but time becomes an issue because the session ends on June the 2nd. So they're going to quickly start running out of time. Several bills to touch on today, just to kind of give you a flavor of where things stand. You may have heard about House Joint Resolution 7 and Senate Joint Resolution 66 from Senator Perry and Representative Harris. This relates to the creation of a revolving water fund of around $1 billion a year that would be funded with state sales tax, sales and use tax, as well as insurance premiums that the state collects. So those bills have been referred to their respective committees. Senate bill to the Finance Committee on March the 10th, and the House version to Natural Resources on March the 7th. Have not seen any information regarding the scheduling of committee hearings for both of those. We also have not been able to determine whether the Senate and the House leadership supports this plan. Senator Perry is very involved in water-related issues and was involved in previous iterations of funding for water matters. So would be a very big deal to get that funded and have that on a revolving basis. But that's where we stand on that. Other bills of interest, the touched on last time, Senate Bill 749, Lewis Colhurst. That bill is the one that would do away with the developing versus developed distinction and subject all jurisdictions, including developing districts, to the 3.5% rollback rate. That bill has been referred to the local government committee on February the 7th. A hearing has not yet been scheduled for that bill. Senate Bill 19, Mays Middleton out of Galveston. This bill has been introduced. He's introduced this version of this bill for a few sessions now. But this time it does have traction and is on the lieutenant governor's priority list. It would prohibit the use of public funds for taxpayer funds for lobbying efforts. So sounds good on the surface, but when you think about the instances where governmental entities, I think it's mainly focused on cities and school districts that try to lobby to prevent some of the more popular items that are introduced in the recent sessions. But you could have instances where it could be, important for local governments like MUDs or what have you to be able to hire a lobbyist to be able to pursue particular items. Otherwise, it's just going to be the private enterprises that will be able to pay for lobbyists, and the government entities cannot. So that does have a lot of steam behind it. It's already been passed out of the committee, and it's on the intent calendar for a vote. It's got a companion bill in the House. I think it's likely that would pass. One on the Senate side, we'll see what happens on the House. I think it is important to note that this relates only to lobbying the state legislature, not the federal. So, the lobbying efforts that have been undertaken with Crenshaw's office by the River Authority to obtain funding, that would not be impacted by this bill, but anything at the state level would be. So continuing to watch that bill.
Which that's your box now.
That is Senate Bill 19.
No, I mean the federal level. At the federal level, they put back the new your box.
Yeah.
So another way to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
Senate Bill 19.
Senate Bill 19, yes. Next bill, this is a retread from a previous session, House Bill 602. Valerie Swanson, she's introduced this bill in the past. It would change the qualification requirements for MUD directors. You would have to own land in a district, which would take away the ability of someone to qualify to be a director by renting in a district. That bill didn't go anywhere last session. This time it has been referred to Land and Resource Management Committee on March the 4th. Has not had a hearing scheduled for it as of yet.
And what's the number? House bill?
That bill is House Bill 602. Next one, House Bill 638. This bill has a hearing set for today, actually at 8 a.m. It would require water districts to make audio and video recordings of meetings and post those on the internet. So I took a look at the language. It doesn't look really any different from what we're already doing here. I wanted to see if it would potentially change what we do at the Woodlands level. Of course, we've done this for years, but it's been on a voluntary basis. So we'll see where that bill goes, but it did have a hearing set for this morning. Next one, House Bill 2561 relating to meeting place for a board meeting. There's also another version of this, Senate Bill 933. So 2561 on the House side, that one, I looked at it, it wouldn't really change what we do in the Woodlands. I think, the language of it would still allow for us to have a uniform meeting place like we do here now. The Senate bill, it's got a little more stringent language. This is Senate Bill 933. It was filed on January 27th. It has been referred to local government committee on February 27th. Has not had a hearing yet. It would require meetings to be in the district, period. The only way to get around that would be to have 5 qualified electors, which I'm guessing they mean voters, petition the board to designate a location outside the district. So that's not a very high threshold, but if that bill passed, then we would have to go through that process for any of our districts here that can, except for MUD 6, which this is in the boundaries of MUD 6. So we would have to go through that process to retain this meeting location. So we'll see where that one goes, but we are monitoring that since it would impact our meeting location. Let's see. House Bill 3379 by Rosenthal out of the Cypress area. This would require director elections to be held in November. We've seen a version of this be filed in the past. It has been referred, it was filed on February the 26th. It has not yet been referred to committee. Let's see. Next bill, this one's actually pretty fascinating to see. We'll see if it goes anywhere. House Bill 2068 regarding Harris County Flood Control District. This would take the flood control district out of the purview of Harris County and would have it be governed by a 5-director board that's appointed by the governor. And it would also create a mechanism that would allow for other counties that are adjacent to Harris County to be added to the flood control district. The mechanism to do that would be the commissioner's court would have to petition the flood control district to add their county to the flood control district. And then after that, if the district agreed, if flood control agreed, there would have to be a confirming election by the voters in the county. You know, there's been talk with some of the flooding issues in Montgomery County in the past about, oh, hey, should we try to get a flood control district in Montgomery County? There's of course challenges. How do you fund it, the tax, et cetera. So this would be an interesting way to potentially address that. We'll see where it goes, but yeah.
Is there any language in that bill that speaks to the line to a particular watershed?
No.
No.
It's about political boundaries, counties.
Oh, okay.
It's counties adjacent to Harris County. So it's not based on watershed.
Okay.
And again, that's House Bill 2068.
Okay.
Next bill, I mentioned this at a previous board meeting, Senate Bill 404. This relates to the investment of public funds in investment pools. That was referred to the Finance Committee and the Senate on February the 3rd, has not had a hearing scheduled. So that bill is still hanging out there.
Could you go back to 2021?
Okay.
I mean, excuse me, 6021 about the land owner.
Yeah.
Is that really directed to apartment owners? Is that what that removes from voting or?
Well, it would remove, if you qualified to be a director by living in the district but not owning property, whether it's be curious to see how far someone would try to take that. I mean, yes, of course, if you're living in an apartment, you wouldn't qualify. If you lived in a rent house, you wouldn't qualify. Now, if you put your property in a trust, if you put it in some other, vehicle, a single purpose entity, for whatever reason, liability purposes or whatever, would someone be able to go so far as to say you're not qualified to serve because where you live isn't owned by you in your individual capacity? That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that, but potentially. So,
That wouldn't affect mud lots, right? Would it?
no, because you own property subject to taxation.
I found your mud lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Print it out and show you where they are. Looks like a cemetery.
There you go.
Let's see, a few other bills to touch on. Well, I won't mention specific bills, but just concepts. So there have been a handful of bills filed that would create blackout periods for if you have a failed bond election, you would have to go 2 years, some of them say 5 years, before you could have another bond election, general obligation bond election. We've talked here before about how a lot of our districts are out of bonding capacity, and one possible method to be able to pay for some of the upcoming infrastructure would be a bond election. Don't think that's likely, but if it were to be brought to the voters and fail, if one of these bills passed, then that could impact it. There's also a bill that was introduced that would require supermajority of 60% to be able to have a GO bond election pass. So we'll be following those. A bill introduced actually by our local representative, Toth, House Bill 3537. It was filed in February. It has not been referred to a committee yet. It's got some trouble in language in it because it would restrict a political subdivision's total expenditures from all available sources to the greater of either last year's fiscal year expenditures or an amount that adjusts for last year's expenditures and a population growth and inflation. So think about if you had an instance where you had major repairs that you had to do that hadn't been done previously, or you're getting to a maintenance period that could negatively impact your ability to undertake those repairs and expenses. So that's got some very troublesome language in it. Again, it's only been filed; it hasn't been referred to committee, so we'll see if that gets any traction or not. There's been a few bills actually that have been filed in the House and the Senate. House Bill 763, House Bill 1131, Senate Bill 1449, that would all, even at the 3.5% threshold, you may recall a few years back, we had at least one district avail themselves of the ability to go over the 3.5 because of a disaster declaration. These bills would remove that exception from the 3.5 limitation. So even if there's a disaster, you would still be subject to the 3.5% limit. So that could be a problem in certain instances for a district. There's another bill. I'm finding where the bill number is. Here it is. House Bill 919. So this bill was filed actually in November before the session even started, referred to State Affairs Committee on March the 6th. So we talked a number of times about the prohibition on the use of public funds to advocate for or against an election proposition. We talk about how you can educate, but you can't advocate. This bill would go a lot further than that. It effectively would create a blackout period that no public funds could be used to communicate. It uses communicate once an election has been called by a governing body. So, you've all seen the billboards where our school district is coming pretty doggone close when they're talking about, their election for this, that, or the other, but they're trying to not cross the line into advocacy. I don't know if this bill is aimed at that concept, but it's not limited to those, certain political subdivisions. It's across the board. So, we've talked here about different ways to fund some of these major infrastructure projects, one of which being a potential rollback election. I know we're a long ways before making any decisions on that, but we have talked before about timelines. and about public education. We've talked about, engaging a consultant to do that and the timelines to be able to have those communications. So if this bill were to pass, again, only about 15% of bills in a session pass, but if it were to pass, then once you called your election, if it was a November election that you have to call by the middle of August, then you would be prohibited from spending public funds, whether it's an outside consultant or just inside Woodlands Water to put out information pieces about a rollback election. You'd be prohibited from doing that once the elections are called. So, hate to be the bearer of bad news. I told Eric, I said, the best thing I can tell you about legislative session is only about 15% of bills pass. But
What's that number? Still a bunch.
House Bill 919.
Feel like that was written with CISD in mind.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but it's not limited to certain political subdivisions across the board. So I know it's a lot of information, but that's where we stand. Yep. Happy to answer questions if you have. Okay.
Moving on, we're going to jump to the committee reports. Personnel Committee did not meet, so there is no report. Audit and Finance Committee, Ron Wilson.
We met earlier today on this subject of item number 11, so we'll have something to say at that point. When that comes up.
Public Education Committee, Neil.
Yes, we also met today, and as advised to trustees on February 12th, continuation of the holiday consultancy on future public engagement and education activities is under consideration. General Manager Peterson provided an update on the content and cost of the Holloway work proposal. The scope of work continues implementation of the Woodlands Water Agency to Strategic Communications Plan over the period May 1 to September 30 of this year. The Public Education Committee reviewed the work proposal and determined that it is consistent with the Strategic Communications Plan 3, which was approved by the trustees at the January meeting. And so we unanimously recommend that we go forward with this. And I think, as just mentioned by Trustee Wilson, perhaps the more appropriate location for that discussion would be under agenda item 11. The other thing is we reviewed the agenda for the upcoming community planning group, which is meeting on April 2nd at the Woodlands Township offices. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Questions for anyone regarding the committee reports? Okay, that moves us back to the general manager's report. General Manager Peterson, please.
I have a few updates for you. First off, I wanted to give the trustees an update on the GRP meeting, my first GRP meeting. I mentioned to you that I'll be coming back to you with an update on the meeting. The meetings are video, but each month what I thought I would do is come back to you, give a brief summary of what occurred at the meeting, and then we'll capture that in the trustee summary that'll go to the MUDs. So with that, just a quick update on what occurred at the GRP meeting. With two new members, both replacing coincidentally the former chair and vice chair of the GRP committee, that leadership needed to be identified. The committee did vote unanimously to vote in James Corn as the board chair and myself as the vice chair. So leadership on that GRP committee is set with James and myself as chair and vice chair. I did just a couple notes that occurred during the meeting. I did ask SGRA if there was any specific objections by SGRA to consider any expansion or increased utilization of the GRP facility by way of adding new members. And the response was no objection other than working out the legal proceedings that are going on right now. So that was one item of note. There was a long, extensive discussion between the other new member on the committee and the general manager for Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. One of the things that I wanted to note on that, the conversation ended up going towards the decline of the aquifers, which is documented and been reported. And the response that the general manager gave was that discussion is of the decline of the aquifer is not an aquifer problem, it is an infrastructure problem. Alluding to the existing wells across the county, essentially not being adequate to withstand the reduction in the aquifer decline. Which I thought was extremely telling or interesting. I think there will be further discussion on that for sure.
Meaning they're not deep enough. So the aquifer is not declining. Gotcha.
Which could have amazingly drastic cost implications to probably every municipality in this county at some point.
Is that Hardeman? Is that Hardeman that's that one?
No,
Who's Lone Star's representative, you said?
no, this was this was a discussion between one of the new the other GRP committee member, the new one, Ben Schlotnick, and Sarah Kuba, the general manager. Of
Lone Star.
This was an exchange
Okay.
between
Who does he represent? East of 45 or?
Mud's east of 45. That's right. Yeah. So I think there'll be more discussion. Of course, that was more of a Lone Star discussion than really a GRP discussion. So it might have been out of place, but it was a pretty interesting discussion. Pretty telling. Let's see. I did ask Esther if for an agenda item for next month, where I asked the GRP committee members to be prepared to come to the meeting to discuss what their goals are as they represent their different agencies or different representatives, constituents rather. So because I felt like it was important to know as we're trying to potentially solve certain things where everybody stands on the committee. So my understanding is there'll be an agenda item so that we can hear from every committee member to see what their goals and objectives are. I want to know if we're aligned or not.
Yeah.
And what that is. And lastly, just wanted to report that after that meeting, a couple days after, Kim, myself, and Brad did meet to go over that meeting and talk about the next meeting. Again, I committed to doing that, and I've had 2 meetings to do that, and we'll continue to do that. That was the update on the GRP. We are continuing to do ditch assessments, and we're approaching about 50% complete. So it's just a slow process to gather all the assets and capture all the data, but we are continuing to move forward. As you can see, probably should have started off with this. We've got some new building improvements that we've been talking about for a while. And so piece by piece, it comes in. This was actually finished up yesterday. So this is the first meeting out the gate. And we'll evolve how we use them, I'm sure. I'm really curious about you four probably to see what how well it works for y'all. It works, I think, well for us on this side, but we were wondering if we had to deal with that. We saved some money by not doing it, but if we need to, we will, but do projectors. So we'll evolve on how we do it and how we can flip back to content and different things throughout meetings, but wanted to show you the new.
And you can still change the size. I mean, you pull that lever over to get bigger if you want to see a certain section. Like a photograph or.
Yes, just like a computer screen. Yeah. Yeah. So, if we wanted to put the pack up there and flip to a particular page when a question comes up, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas we can do. And then if you saw on the way in, there's a TV now facing the lobby. that we'll utilize for overflow meetings, as for the live, and we'll post the live feed and there's speakers in there, so they'll be able to hear what's happening in here when there's not enough seats in here. And then during regular hours, for the public, we're building some educational content that will be just kind of scroll. It's a different kind of TV that's made to be on all day. That one is. So John and Tori will be working on content that aligns with the strategic communication plan and anything else we want to send out to the community. There's still a few more things to come. I'll go over them when we get closer, but we're going to build a kind of an educational interface area out in the lobby that people can touch and feel, or at least see, what does a meter look like? What does your cleanout look like? When we talk about valves and meters and things, you'll get to see those types of apparatus so people can learn what that looks like. So that's being built as well. Let's see. Did want to mention that I did attend and presented at the last township meeting. Talked a little bit about, and it was intentional to start attending those meetings on some regularity to give kind of a state of the agency address to the township. I started off with talking a little bit about infrastructure renewal, and then also talked in their previous meetings. They were having a lot of discussion from the community about what we call flush valves or fire hydrants. It's what most of the community will call them. And so I talked a little bit about stats and why they're called flush valves versus fire hydrants and all that. So that was the main content that I spoke to the township on. Big news for next week. We are doing the go live for the new software. So we've been in testing for about the last probably 9 months or so, doing, bugs, cleaning up bugs and problem solving with the and setup and everything else. So a lot of training with staff. And so that's going to be going live on Monday. So the last build that just went out was from the old software, and we'll be rolling forward after Monday. So scary and exciting all at the same time. Let's see. And the last thing I had was just to point out the Allmuds meeting dates, and I'll bring it up next week at the meetings as well. But the meetings will be April 1st, May 8th, and June 10th. And again, I'll remind everybody those
What are the times?
I believe we're shooting for 5:30, some in the evening.
5:30 p.m. And location roughly would be
All of them will be at the community center across the street. Community
the
center.
old community center in that big room in the back. Okay.
It was big enough.
It's big enough, yeah.
I'll have her my name. Yeah, it's big enough, and they don't have quite the recording stuff that we have here, so we're looking at arranging something so that we can record the meetings.
Do they even have, I haven't been there in a year probably, but do they have a big LCD screen in there? I don't remember that.
Yes.
They do? Okay. Put it in.
And obviously the consultants will likely have PowerPoints and different things to show you also. We'll have all that. And that was all I had in my report.
Very good. Questions?
Yes.
So with the new software, is everyone who has auto bill pay, do they have to start again? Do you have to reset up everything, or it's going to hopefully be seamless?
You have to set up a new login, all that you'll see, other major change is a new account number. That's it. Couple new bill features too, but major account number.
Okay, very good. That brings us to agenda item 11. Consider an act on WWA budget amendment.
Yes.
General Manager Peterson.
Right. I have probably the couple things. The easiest thing to start with is this document that I passed out But before I do, I'm sure the trustees are aware of the resolution adopting criteria for adjustment of Woodlands Water operating budget cash reserve. You should also have a copy there as well. Basically, what that calls for is not new. It's been in place for years. But what that calls for is for a look at the budget around the time of the audit, which was just done. And when you look at it, and basically, if the cash reserves for WWA drops below 1 month,
Anybody else need one of these sheets?
Yeah, Bob,
someone's missing. What are you missing?
The sheet that you're discussing.
No, the resolution sheet
Resolution.
is not what you discussed. What do you need, Bob?
Here's the resolution.
There.
Yeah. This, I've got it.
Did sign
Good.
it. And one.
No idea.
Anybody?
Got it. Thank you.
So at the time that we look at it, if the cash reserve is below 1 month of reserve, then we're required to make a cash call true up from the MUDs to get to 1.5 months. And so 1.5 months would be just over at that time, just over about 600,000 split across the 10 MUDs. And that would get to 1.5 months of reserve. What I did in this spreadsheet here is, and there's several things. We've got several things at play here. Obviously, we talked about an incoming from the excess from Estuary. That's coming to the MUDs. That's that first set of boxes on the left. And then as Neil mentioned earlier, I'll give you a little background on the Holloway. If you'll recall, the Holloway contract was originally entered into with Estuary, and it was in Estuary's 2023-24 budget and then extended through 2024-25 budgets. But last fall or so, we took over the management of that contract in action. So we've been managing, still working with Estuary, but that WWA took over the managing of that contract. But the contract itself was still signed with Estuary. That contract expires at the end of April. And just looking at what we still have to accomplish and need to work through, particularly with the unknowns of some of the bigger projects, which again, we'll figure out, kind of what level of support we'll need from Holloway, depending on what the MUDs do later this year. But what I'm proposing here is to take the Holloway contract when it expires with Estuary, bring in a general consultation contract with them with WWA. And then the budget here of the 105 would be for them to continue their work under a new scope from May 1 through this fiscal year. Now, depending on what the MUDs end up doing on some of the bigger projects later this year and in June, July, August, whatever ends up getting decided, that likely will probably pivot really what ends up getting spent here, just because we don't really know what we'll need to do. On a normal basis, the website has been completed. I think once we sever ties with Holloway, I think internally we can handle the continuation of the website. But as far as any heavy lifting with town hall meetings or anything else that might end up needing to be done, if that's the direction that it goes, we wouldn't be able to do that on our own. We don't have the staff to do that. So my proposal is to follow the resolution to adjust the WWA budget to true up to 1.5 months, and also approve the budget amendment to add 105,000 for Holloway. And so you can see some of this is WWA, but you can see the splits for each district for the incoming from the excess and then the outgoing expenses for those two particular projects, and then the net effect there at the far. So I would need, I'd need a motion and approval to make those adjustments, and we wouldn't make any expense adjustments to the budget until funds were forwarded from Mr.
Didn't we decide at the audit committee that of approval of that,
The audit committee recommends approval of the budget increases.
so that is the motion, requires no second.
We have discussion.
We can, of course.
Um, this operating cash reserve from districts, that's the amount you need to take you to 2 months?
One and
To take you to one
a,
and
the
a half.
resolution requires one and a.
So you're at what now?
Well, at the time that this was put, it was 0.94. And currently in your report, we're at like 0.54. So current month, this will take us to 1.06. And this was budgeted, this particular month was budgeted to be a lower month in the original budget. So it's not, it's not a surprise that it's lower this particular month. And some of what drives that is, this is a cash flow timing basis, timing issue more than anything. Because what drives the money that we utilize to do the job is, one, the admin fee, and two, the 10% markup on managing exterior contracts. And there's two big chunks of work that we haven't done yet this fiscal year. One, if you recall, the MUDs approved buying all the commercial meters to change out across all the different districts, to change out the large diameter commercial meters. And that has a 6-month lead time. So we purchased them and now they're starting to come in. So now we can start getting that work done. And so there'll be some revenue coming in from that. And then if you recall, each MUD approved extra money to address some ditch piping situations that we have across the MUDs. And I put that on hold in the first half of this fiscal year because we were doing the ditch evaluations. And originally I thought, well, we'll likely have some economies of scale that we're going to need to, capture across all the MUDs instead of just picking certain, projects in a particular MUD. What I've seen now that we're close to 50% in the evaluation is there's some things that we can't wait. We've got to do now. So I still think there'll be some economies of scale that we'll build once we get done with the evaluation and build the capital improvement plan, and we'll space it out and come back to you and the MUDs on that stuff. But that's another big chunk of projects that hasn't occurred that we're going to need to start getting rolling on to address.
And you need obviously pull from cash to pay for those initially.
So this gets done within 60 days of the audit generally. That's what the resolution says, right? And that's just a snapshot in time.
And then,
Right.
So what you just described, does it get you far enough?
Yes.
Okay. Going through all of what you just described, you land kind of later on in the year in a good spot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe we'll end up in
All
a
right.
much better spot.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And in the past, and what I didn't mention, because we're not in the situation, but you can read it in the resolution, is if we're above 2, then it's a return back to the MUDs back to 1.5. So, and that has occurred over the years. Candidly, there might have been a more conservative look at the budget in years past, and I looked at the budget more tightly, and so that probably was something that I'll learn from in the future. But nonetheless, just from a timing standpoint.
This resolution only applies to the cash reserves.
Right.
And the Holloway contract, just the details of that. I don't think we've discussed that.
I just went through.
We mentioned it.
That was what I started with. Committed.
You gave us times and dates. Right?
No, I went through the whole 5 minutes ago. Happy to go back through it.
you need that, David?
I mean, the
You need it, we'll do it.
the cash reserves, I have any.
But it is one motion,
That's-
and it was approved by the Audit and Finance. So you're certainly within your right to
Yeah.
seek further clarifications, information, et cetera.
So why don't you go through, go through that again?
Okay. So the contract was originally entered into between SGRA and Holloway, and it was in the approved budget back in 23.4, and then extended 24-25 budgets. So the trustees approved for that. That contract had a time stamp on it basically, and that was to expire at the end of this April. And so last fall, we really didn't start getting going until I think it was like September of the year before, September of 23, I think. And last fall, we took over the management of it. Woodlands Water Agency did. But the contract still sat, between SGRA and WWA. So they've helped us develop the renewal website, build all the content for that, helped us build all the project summary sheets that are on there now, helped us develop and build the community work group that's now in place, and really been instrumental in getting us this far to start educating the public and creating transparency to build public education at this point. So not knowing what and right now we've kind of focused on all the existing infrastructure renewal that we're doing, all the funded smaller projects that are going on that the MUDs are already doing, or SJ is already doing. And so those are on the website now. We knew eventually there would need to be an adjustment to talk about some of the bigger projects, but obviously we're not there yet. They're both in evaluation, as you know, and once more information comes out from that, and once the MUDs make decisions on what direction they want to go with those two, that will kind of dictate what direction public education goes. Whether if it goes one direction, then we really need to bring the public in. Then I could see town hall meetings and different things. So this would include us really just bridging the gap between when that contract ends at the end of April, so May 1 through just this fiscal year, recognizing that whatever the MUDs end up doing on either of those projects may change the course of what actually gets utilized out of this 105. We'll just have to see. In the meantime, it's going to help continue the community working group and continue to adjust and make updates to the website. That's what we'll do in the meantime.
I remember that discussion.
Okay.
I guess what I'm looking for is a statement of the work product that's expected, since we don't know the direction we're going. What do we need to spend additional consulting dollars on? At this time, we can always bring this back when.
I think there's a
when it's necessary.
significant, public education campaign that is needed to educate the community on what you're doing in infrastructure as we speak.
We haven't made a decision to say what we're doing in infrastructure.
Well, you're doing infrastructure renewal right now.
Well, we're doing some.
Yeah.
Within each month.
There's easier conversations and there's harder conversations, but they're all part of infrastructure renewal. We're not differentiating big projects, little projects at this point. We're focusing, educating the public on, how the infrastructure comes about, how infrastructure is funded, which projects are already moving forward. We haven't spoken about any of the other projects yet because we don't know information on that yet. The MUDs haven't made any decisions on that yet. So this is not a campaign to focus on any particular project or projects, but it will be instrumental if and when those projects move forward in whatever way they do, because it won't be free, whatever ends up occurring. So there will need to be pretty significant public education.
It's probably worth noting that the Holloway contract has a lot of flexibility in it, that if we were going to sunset maybe some of the heavier lifting that they were doing, they're completely amenable. The contract speaks to being able to really push work off into the future. Not like you have to spend this money to do things. So that's right now, you're kind of in a fork in the road. You don't know which way you're going, and it sets them up and sets things that are already in motion still until a decision is made down the road. They're being pretty flexible, which is nice.
And that was the intent of having the contract system set up so that we could call on them as needed. And the critical thing, as I see it right now, is the community working group. We've only had 2 meetings thus far. One was purely organizational. The second was informational. I would say Eric got his information fire hose on all of the interactions from SDRA through Woodlands Water to individual MUDs and how the funding structure works and the necessity over time that renewal would have to be undertaken. And so it's a very wide range of information just at that one meeting. We have another meeting coming up on April the 2nd, in which there will be a question asked. What do you think? What is your feedback to Woodlands Water? And put in your ideas about how we go forward. So that's coming up. Now, in addition to website management and so forth, there are, as Eric mentioned, and the fork in the road question, town halls. We don't have the skill set or people to be able to hold such things. Eventually, hopefully, we will. But there's also smaller scale meetings, so-called meeting the box toolkits. So they're working that up. There are a number of items under their scope that are, let's see, let me find that.
So is that the statement of work?
Yes. Yeah. In general, yeah. So key messaging, talking points, and public information tools. So you will have seen there's more information going out to the Woodlands than ever before. And this is in part related to the consultant improving our communications efforts. Public engagement, again, large scale public meeting, that is a major undertaking. The community working group, which I consider as a critical part of this effort, and that is an ongoing thing. Let's see. One important thing is no content will be added to the website without the prior review and approval from Woodlands Water. And I think I mentioned to you a piece of feedback at the last meeting was from the community working group, no surprises. So what does that mean? Total transparency, which is my intent to ensure happens.
You know, like Hugh said, they're flexible, they're capable of being a pause, and I don't know, why don't we just pause the funding until we, decide, make these major decisions. And
Because we need to continue the education effort, the standard structure and so forth. And this is, we're trying to build flexibility into the process. But this, I think, is the most reasonable approach, given the uncertainty
so
on the path forward.
the meeting in 2 April,
Yes.
and what's the topics of that meeting?
I don't have that with me. The key thing was getting feedback from the members of the community working group. What do you think? How can we take that into our educational activities? There's a review of what has happened thus far, particularly with regard to how the meetings function. Getting feedback on that. And just a couple of the housekeeping items that I don't recall off the top of my head.
So
We'll also go through a summary of the existing infrastructure renewal projects that are ongoing. And then we'll give them at least some insight or an update that the two AC and treatment plant are at least in evaluation at this point, and no other information is available at this point. So we'll go through into probably more detail in the active projects through the project summary sheets that are on the website, and then go into probably a higher level, just update on the other two.
Well, if we pause this contract, would the meetings not occur?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be it. Be done.
So what strategic role does Holloway play in the holding of the meetings? Are they?
They are facilitators.
Facilitators.
They build, we've worked with them to build the content, the presentation, all of the question and answer, all the, I would encourage you to ask your representative that goes on your behalf, because there's a lot of information. And they have different tools they use to capture information from live. Like, what do you think? And then they've got some technological things where the CWG can answer live and we can show it up on the screen. They do a bunch of that type of stuff, as well as building the content with us, stuff that we don't have the capability of doing.
One thing I did not mention is there is a website that's planned for the community working group for their use, in providing a one-stop shop of all the information that they're working on, where they can also do Q&A. That's in progress. So I would think that that's a critical piece for the community working group to have, which they don't have just yet. One comment I do have to make, what's the population of Woodlands?
120,000.
So 105,000 divided by 127,000 off the top of my head is 87 cents or so, less than 90 cents. This is what we're talking about.
Sending an olive branch, to Holloway to continue in collaboration with Woodlands Water. I mean, we think of John and how great of a job he's done. This is an extension for him. Is he going to be taking this over at any point in the communications realm, do we think, or is there just way too much information that needs to be handed off to someone?
Yeah, once any of the heavier lifting stuff, if it's decided there's no more public engagement for any of the bigger projects, for instance, I think John can handle managing internally. We can manage the website going forward. We don't have graphics content creation abilities, so that's also what they're helping doing right now. So if we ever we could update things simply on the website, going forward, and we'll eventually, I think, get there. That to that point, we are going to just be in maintenance mode, because I do think that website can serve the community very well in continuing to give them updates on all the various projects as we go into them for the next decade or however long. But as far as building new content other than just updating minor things, we don't have that capability. So they would serve as that as
and
well.
then would that be kind of a core that could be worked into, like a house, so to speak, of maybe it's marketing or however that content is going to be put to the, you can go in and change the information as it comes, and that's something that could be taken internally. Just something in the future to
hire. I mean, we could certainly expand our capabilities in the future by hiring content creators and graphics, folks and things like that. Sure, it could be internal, long term. Yeah, but as far as maintenance for the website long term, we just have to see what we really need, and at that point.
So it's kind of let's evolve this, and over the next 5 months, here's what we're thinking.
To get us through. The thought is just to get us through this fiscal year. which ends in September. And there may be decisions made in this summer based on those other two projects that would change that. Depends.
We should call the question. We have a motion on the floor. We've had discussion. I'll begin, all in favor signify of passing the motion as presented by General Manager Peterson to the Audit and Finance Committee for budget amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to no need for a special session, reconvene. So discussion for matters to be placed on future agendas. Do we have anything that comes to anyone's mind? Hearing none, meeting's adjourned.